It's not the first time she's addressed tragedy from this spot, but in the wake of this attack, the Prime Minister signalled things were different.
We cannot and must not pretend that things can continue as they are. Things need to change, and they need to change in 4 important ways.
And so, with investigators still combing the scene, the Prime Minister set out what she said would be a new approach. The first step to challenge the ideology that drives extremism.
It will only be defeated when we turn people's minds away from this violence and make them understand that our values, pluralistic British values, are superior to anything offered by the preachers and supporters of hate.
For those leaving afternoon prayers in a mosque less than 2 miles from the scene of the attack, there was support, but calls for caution too.
Ensuring that London is safe is for the interest of everybody.
If you start segmenting people off, then you're going, rather than make our nation into one, you're going to start putting ghettos in different places, and you don't really want that.
The Prime Minister's second commitment to find ways to better regulate the online world.
We cannot allow this ideology the safe space it needs to breed. Yet that is precisely what the internet and the big companies that provide internet-based services provide.
For the chairman of the East London Mosque, those proposals have merit, but there was concern too.
The targeting of the online, if you like, the messaging and the approach taken by people who are propagating such messages is a good thing, and I think it's important that communities shouldn't feel that through this means that they are being again targeted or isolatedly looked at.
The third proposal was to increase pressure on communities to root out those in the grips of extremism.
There is, to be frank, far too much tolerance of extremism in our country. So we need to become far more robust in identifying it and stamping it out across the public sector and across society. That will require some difficult and often embarrassing conversations. But the whole of our country needs to come together to take on this extremism.
This proposal, some say, could push communities further apart, but counter-extremism think tank Quilliam questioned whether it goes far enough.
That local councils must stop working with the very organisations that are actually trying to bring down our government's counter-terrorism strategy, and I'm talking about the PREVENT strategy. That's happening up and down the country. That could be what Theresa May was talking about, embarrassing conversations.
The final proposal outlined by the Prime Minister, a fresh look at whether new laws and resources are needed.
We need to review Britain's counter-terrorism strategy to make sure the police and security services have all the powers they need. And if we need to increase the length of custodial sentences for terrorism-related offences, even apparently less serious offences, that is what we will do.
The Prime Minister's response to this attack is to say that a threshold has now been crossed, and that is more than a change of tone. That is, with days to go before the nation decides its future, a change of the entire electoral backdrop, the context of this election. The threats the country faces will not disappear on June the 9th, but the question of who takes responsibility and leadership of it is now at the heart of this election. Tom Rayner, Sky News in London Bridge.